Brooks has been a staple in the running community for nearly 3 decades at this point. There's a good chance that if you've gone into a running specialty store, you would have tried on a pair of Brooks, and there's actually a really good chance that at some point you've actually owned a pair of Brooks if you are or have been a runner for a while. Their super shoe lineup has been lacking something for a couple of years, specifically PIBA, and for the first time they've put it in their super shoe. Meet the Brooks Hyperion Elite 4 PB. What's up everybody, I'm Eric McIntyre, aka Rad Dad Bod, and you're watching Rad Dad Bod TV, where we review running shoes. Today, like I said, we're talking about the Brooks Hyperion Elite 4 PB, standing for, I believe, just personal best, but also kind of standing for PIBA. Now, if it's your first time watching one of my videos, you may notice some timestamps below. Feel free to jump around to the various parts of the review, but if you do so, I would sure appreciate if you come back and watch the full thing when you get a sec, because I put a lot of time and effort into these videos. And if you've been a viewer for a while but haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please consider doing so today and turning on notifications so you get notified every time I drop a new video, which is typically Monday through Friday. Now, before we dive into the specifics of this review, some quick disclaimers and disclosures about the shoe. I did actually not receive this from Brooks. I bought it with my own money, but I have received some shoes from Brooks before in the past for the purpose of review. When I receive a shoe for review, I'm never paid. I never receive talk tracks, talking points. I'm never obligated to actually include the shoe in any specific content, though it is implied that I will create a review, but no one watches it beforehand and all thoughts are entirely my own. But again, like I said, with this one, I actually bought this one off of Roadrunner Sports, with which I have no association whatsoever. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about the intended use of this shoe. Now, it is a super shoe and it is Brooks premium super shoe, so it really is going to be your marathon racing shoe, right? Super shoes are designed to run a full marathon as fast as you can, really. And so they're designed with speed in mind, but also with typically high stack and comfort to carry you through those 26.2. That being said, that is how we're going to be evaluating the shoe today. Now, from a price standpoint, the shoe comes in at $250, which is pretty standard nowadays, if not frankly a little bit lower than where a lot of shoes are going in the super shoe category. We've seen go some as high as $500. Most of them are approaching that $300 range. So $250, while expensive, is reasonable nowadays for this price of shoe or this tier of shoe. From a specs perspective, we're looking at 7 ounces, which is 198 grams, which is on the lighter side of super shoes as a whole, but definitely not the lightest in the super shoe category either. But it is not a shoe that is necessarily going to weigh you down. Like, you're not going to notice any additional weight in this shoe. Then from a stack perspective, you have 40 in the heel, 32 in the forefoot for an 8mm heel to toe drop, which for a Brooks shoe is on the lower end. They tend to be 10 to 12mm drops. But for a Brooks racing shoe, a lot of their performance and speed oriented shoes actually are that 6mm drop range. So 8 is kind of that sweet spot right in between. Now, from a fit perspective, I find that the shoe fits true to size lengthwise, and it does fit very much Brooks-like. Now, what I mean by that is you're going to have a fairly snug midfoot, like I said, true to size length. And then from the rest of the shoe, I felt like it was a fairly standard fit. The toe box is not necessarily like incredibly accommodating, but it is more on the standard end. I wouldn't call it narrow fitting throughout, just a little bit more snug there in the midfoot. And if you've worn a pair of Brooks before, you know that Brooks tends to fit on the narrower side compared to some other brands. Now, moving to the upper, this is one of the really, really cool features of this shoe. If I'm being honest, like, every aspect of this shoe screams premium to me, which is not always the case, surprisingly, with all the super shoes out there, but I really, really like just a lot of aspects. So again, starting with that upper, you have kind of this web-like mesh material or web pattern, and it really is, I mean, you can see all the way through the shoe. It is really, really cool. And it's not necessarily just like thread, which could be potentially like not very durable and would tear really easily, but you can feel that it's reinforced with either like a plastic weave or some type of material that makes it a little bit stronger than just like a really like flimsy thread weave there. So you look at it and you would expect it to be flimsy, you would expect it to be really, really loose, and that's just not really the case overall. Now, from the tongue standpoint, the tongue is not necessarily gusseted, but it is stitched into the, from a tongue standpoint, the tongue is not gusseted, and you can see, like, you can fold it down there, but it is stitched onto the medial side of the shoe. So for the most part, it does in place, and it is that same weave material with some light padding over kind of where the laces come down there near the top. Now, obviously, from a breathability perspective, the shoe is going to be very, very breathable. You're not going to have any concerns there whatsoever from that breathability breathability aspect. And then from a lockdown perspective, like I said, it is a more snug midfoot, and it does tighten down really well and keep your foot really well locked in place. There is some light cushioning around that heel, which adds a little bit of heel lockdown, but I didn't need the runner's knot, nor did I have any concerns with shifting around in this upper. It's not crazy stretchy despite being very airy, and so really, like, the foot stays locked down in place, and the fit is really locked in to me. You also have like these nice laces. I don't know what the actual term for these laces is, but they actually do help assist with lockdown. So they actually stay locked in place where they're laced at, a little bit better than traditional laces with those little ridges. They kind of just hold themselves there. So overall, really like that upper. You get a light pull tab. There may be some concern with some heel or Achilles rubbing there with kind of this tab. It's almost Mach X2-esque, but really there was none whatsoever. I had no friction, hot spots, anything with this upper. Now moving to the midsole, this is really what's new and what everyone's excited about, because really this is a remake or a reimagining of the Hyperion Elite 4, which was released last year. Everything except for the midsole foam, from my understanding, is the same. Now, I did not run in the original Hyperion Elite 4, but again, this one has DNA Gold, which is Brooks's first usage of PIBA. So the whole midsole is going to be a PIBA foam. And then what's really nice is you also get the Speed Vault Plus plate in there, which is an Eris plate. It's a carbon fiber plate, and you can see that it's almost got like a webbed pattern, kind of similar to the upper, right? So what's really unique about that plate is it has holes kind of through it. And this is really important to me with this DNA Gold PIBA foam, right? The reason being, DNA Gold, it is PIBA, so it is going to have more compression than the DNA Flash foam that was in the Hyperion Elite 4. Again, I didn't run in it, but I heard it was very firm. Brooks's formulation of PIBA, the compound is still more firm than in other brands, in my opinion, right? And that's something to keep in mind. Just because something is PIBA does not necessarily mean it's soft, right? It depends on how you tune the foam or what you inject into the foam. So this PIBA-based foam is a little bit firmer than some others. Now, having those cutouts, though, in the carbon fiber plate actually allow the foam to move a little bit more freely and move through that carbon plate and kind of compress in different ways. So despite being a little bit firmer, you still get some really good responsiveness, some really good snap, some really good bounce, even though the foam is a little bit firmer than maybe some other tunings from other brands. Now, with a little bit more of that firmness, again, it's not, I wouldn't call it like firm, but it is a little bit more structured than a lot of PIBA shoes. With that, though, you're going to get a little bit better stability than your traditional PIBA shoe, especially with that narrow of a base. A lot of super shoes that are going to be very soft, you'll notice, actually have fairly wide bases, and that is what allows them to kind of get away with some of the squishier foam, and then they'll have a full carbon fiber plate without it interacting with the holes, which again gives more structure. So they really did a kind of unique take on this shoe. Just really lots of high tech and lots of testing in this shoe that caused it to perform really uniquely compared to some other super shoes on the market. But to be clear, like, this is a super shoe. It is firmer than a lot of PIBA-based shoes on the market. It is a little bit narrower on the base there, but I find that the sensation is snappy. From a pace versatility standpoint and whatnot, like a super shoe, it's made to go fast. For me, I think that just the geometry of the shoe as a whole, you can see you've got kind of that nice toe spring. It is a little bit more narrow. It is just kind of more of a sleeker feel. This isn't going to be your marathon cruiser. So if you're looking for a super shoe, like, that can be fast, but also can be, you know, good for maybe people who aren't sub-3 marathoners, right? People who are more in the 5-hour marathon or 6-hour marathoner, right? Those people, I don't know that they're going to gravitate towards this shoe. This one is a little bit of a snappier, kind of more sleek feel. So if you're going to be out there for long periods of time, I could see you getting a little bit more fatigue in this versus something a little bit bouncier and softer. I personally really like this, though, and I would use this up to a half marathon. I think I could race a marathon in it, but I don't know that it would be my first choice for that. But it is actually one of my favorite super shoes that have been released so far this year. I think it's a really fun take. I just think that the foam is not going to suit everybody. Something to think about for me, my top lightweight trainer of the year last year was the Hyperion 2. This is essentially the super shoe version of the Hyperion 2 with a more responsive foam, lighter, just slightly, but lighter overall, a lot more sleek and breathable. So if you liked the Hyperion 2, I think you're gonna love the Hyperion Elite 4 PB. Now from an outsole perspective, you have the strategically placed rubber compound. Brooks has a really nice rubber compound that they use on their shoes in my experience. This does seem to be different than the one that was on the Hyperion Max 2, which I did find to be a little bit slick when wet. I think with the extra cutouts here and a little bit more texturing, I have found this shoe to be pretty reliable even on slick roads. Obviously not ice, but I have run in the rain and even in the snow lately here in Utah. In the shoe, you can see some dust is collected on these as well, kind of running in some slicker areas, and I have not had any issues with the traction whatsoever. Something to note though is there is a little bit of wear and tear already there in the lateral heel. And it's somewhere that I don't notice a ton of wear and tear on a lot of my shoes, and I have just over 30 miles on these. So I wouldn't expect there to be as much wear and tear on these as there is. I'm trying to remember if I've done any treadmill speed sessions though in these, because sometimes that will just grind down some of the grip as well and reduce some of the rubber durability. But that is something to potentially watch out for, especially if you're someone who gets a lot of mileage out of their super shoes. You're probably not going to want to put too many miles on it pre-race if you are worried about some of that durability on the outsole itself. But from a traction perspective, I thought the shoe did a good job. I feel like the traction is strategically placed. I feel like it's lightweight, it's thin, it's not gonna weigh the shoe down, but I do like having a good outsole, even on a super shoe, because you never know what the conditions are gonna be on race day. Now, as far as who's this shoe for, I feel like we've kind of already addressed it, which is, this is the shoe for those who like a little bit sleeker, a little bit maybe firmer, not firm, but a little bit firmer, but still snappy ride underfoot. If you're someone who really likes like that large squish feeling underfoot, more of a bouncy ride as opposed to a snappy ride, this shoe is probably not for you. But if you really liked the Hyperion 2, if you like I'm trying to think some other shoes that maybe compare, like the Kinvara, if you like the feel of the Kinvara, how that kind of comes off the ground, right? I feel like this is a shoe that kind of gives me those vibes. It's kind of like the Vaporfly, but in a slightly more stable and firmer package. More Vaporfly 2 than Vaporfly 3. Obviously, like, they're not the exact same shoes. I'm just trying to talk about like what types of people might gravitate towards this, right? I really liked it. I like Brooks's performance line. I know that they haven't been the most popular brand on the market for performance as of late. A lot of people are gravitating towards some other brands, but I think that Brooks did really knock it out of the park with this one, and I'm really excited to see how the DNA Gold also translates to the Hyperion 5, which I believe releases mid-year. So Brooks is innovating. They're changing a lot of things in how they approach performance. Really cool that they took some feedback from, you know, a lot of reviewers and athletes about getting PIBA in their super shoes, and that they went ahead and did that and listened to their audience, because sometimes brands just don't listen at all. So I like the direction that they're going. I'm excited to see what they put out. Hyperion 2 was my favorite lightweight trainer last year. I'm excited to see the update this year. I think the update is still DNA Flash, which I did like the DNA Flash, so excited to see how that one feels. But all in all, I like the execution of this, and I think that if you are someone who likes a little bit of sleeker of a shoe, this is going to be something that appeals to you. So just some final thoughts. Hyperion Elite 4 PB, for me, gets the stamp of approval. This is one of the shoes that I would consider for a 5K if I was going to time trial tomorrow. And frankly, it's one of the shoes that I would be considering all the way up to the marathon as well if I was going to run a race and was trying to perform and not just finish. So I really like the shoe. I think it's performed well. I don't think a lot of people are talking about it. I haven't seen a ton of reviews on it, but right now it's neck and neck with the Adios Pro 4 as far as super shoe of 2025 for me. So there you go. If you watched this far, I sure appreciate you. Please take a sec, hit that like button, leave a comment, let me know what you'd like to see in my reviews, or if you have any questions about the shoe. And if you haven't already, please consider hitting that subscribe button and turning on notifications to get notified every time I drop a new video. And to round us out, as always, I'll leave you with a question, which is, did you try the Hyperion Elite 4? And if so, what were your thoughts on the shoe? And are you excited to try the PIBA version? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks, everybody.